That's right.
Murray Morrison, my savior, because 2002, the tax office put me into receivership, and I dealt with it myself for almost a year, and then I asked somebody I knew who was a bankruptcy trustee, who should I get? I need somebody to talk to, and he sent me to Murray Morrison. Jerry Foran sent me to Murray Morrison, and Murray was a bankruptcy lawyer. And the difference between a bankruptcy trustee and a bankruptcy lawyer is that the trustee is working for the creditors. The lawyer is working for you. Is that a good way to describe it?
Absolutely. Unless he's working for the dark side, which he sometimes does.
Well, you could be working on either side of the bankruptcy. I understand that.
But, yeah, I'm not a trustee, and I don't work for the creditors when I'm working for the bankrupt. So that's correct.
You work for whoever hires you.
Yep.
But in reality, most of the time out there, when somebody's got debt problems, they go down the street, or they ask their brother, or they look in the yellow pages, or they ask some friend, they say, well, who? And they send them to XYZ bankruptcy trustee. They go there, they decide this is somebody that I'd really like to deal with. And after they do that, when they sign the paper, that guy that you picked out is suddenly working for the creditors. And the Bankruptcies Act and all that stuff, he's not working for you anymore. I mean, you're just one of the people that he's dealing with.
Well, they're conflicted. They do work for you in one sense, and that is that they guide you through the process. Okay, and it's one of their primary functions. And quite frankly, the easier it is and the less problems you cause in the process, the happier they are.
That would make sense.
But on the other side, their obligation is to get as much money as they legally can for the creditors. So, yeah, they're conflicted.
And they can be the person that you hired because you thought they were your friend or the guy that you could deal with, and they're the ones that are taking you to court and asking for a special examination and all the rest of the stuff. Because let me give you an example. I got this last night. Somebody wrote me a question, and they said, I've got a son going bankrupt, and I want to know if I can give him $25,000 after the bankruptcy with any problem. Right. Well, if he tells the son that he's going to give him $25,000 after he's bankrupt, is that money that the son should be telling the bankruptcy trustee? I mean, this is a really good question, I think, isn't it?
Of course it should. Now, there's a couple of ways of looking at it, but if we may, I'd like to back up.
Okay, back up.
Because you said the magic words, I hired the trustee. No, you didn't. Even though you were petitioned in, the guy who goes to the trustee does not hire the trustee. That's the first sort of step down the rocky road, is when you pay a trustee to do your bankruptcy, you're making a contribution to your estate.
To the estate.
Yeah.
Yes.
Keyword is estate, not you. You've been dehumanized into something called an estate.
Yes,
and
the estate, yes.
The estate is to be administered by the trustee under the statute, the Bankruptcy and Insolvency Act. And so you, in a sense, become a non-entity. You become an estate, like dear old Aunt
You're
Maud.
almost like you're dead, except you're still alive.
Well,
so they can still,
you're still alive, so you can make your contributions.
and they keep on asking you for all the details of your life.
Yeah. Now, I don't mean to demean trustees here. Don't get me wrong.
I don't want to either, but
they have their job to do, and the bulk of them do it quite well.
And they're necessary to do it.
And they're necessary to do it. And let's be honest, bankruptcy is designed to be a way for people who can't possibly manage their debt load to be rid of it after jumping through a series of hoops. So, it's a good thing, but it's a tough thing to do.
Got to understand it. So, what are we going to call this one? Because we're going to put we want to call this is definitions, perhaps, something of this nature. So, but now you haven't hired. You signed the bankruptcy paper. You become a bankrupt. And the bankruptcy trustee is going to call a bunch of creditors together and so on. My question to you was, if I'm going to go bankrupt, and after I go bankrupt, my dad's told me he's going to give me $25,000 to get started again, should that become part of my estate?
It is part of your estate.
Because my dad told me I'm going to get it.
Yeah. So you have to admit that to the trustee, and if you don't, there are consequences for not admitting things to the trustee. And what that $25,000 would become is something called after acquired property. Because you've got to remember, bankruptcy is just like that camera there, except it's like a photo camera. It's a snapshot of your situation on the day that you got entered into the records.
Yep.
And so all your property at that date, theoretically, is given over to the trustee. There's provincial exemptions, which we can talk about if you like, so you get to keep a bunch of stuff depending on where you are. But anything you get after that, if you have a lotto win, let's not use the money from Dad because that has an emotional context. If you win the lottery, you're going to be paying out your debts.
Before your discharge.
Before your discharge, yep.
So if you bought your ticket before your discharge and the lottery wasn't until after the discharge, is it still there?
That one's kind of fun. We haven't got an answer to that in the case law, and I wouldn't want to predict. I think that you might. I don't know. I really don't. I'd like to test that one. A, because my client could afford me. And B, it's an interesting case because the asset was the ticket. You had that in the bankruptcy, and you'd be open.
Should I be telling all my bankruptcy trustee? I've never bought a lottery ticket in my life, so I'm okay.
I have. I call it a special tax for idiots, but anyway.
Okay.
But no, think of it this way. If I bought a ticket on May the 1st, my birthday, for good luck.
Okay.
And 4 or 5 months later, I went bankrupt, and I just kept the ticket in my wallet, and I walked out. I had less than the income I'm allowed to make, so only needed to go the 9 months in bankruptcy, and we'll talk about that. And I walked out, then I'm open to the accusation that I sat on the ticket knowing it was a winner. So I think you'd be attacked on it.
Okay. Okay. But if I had already received if I'd gone bankrupt, and 2 weeks before I received my discharge, I bought a ticket which wasn't going to be drawn for another 5 months or something or other, and then I won, what about that one?
Can you buy a ticket like that? I've never seen one.
Well,
but I would think in that case...
One of the hospital lotteries or so, they go 4 or 5 months.
Yeah, they go 4 or 5 months. I would think you'd be okay on that. Because it was an unresolved asset and you couldn't possibly have concealed it. So.
Yeah, I didn't know.
Yeah, I think you'd be okay on that. You'd have a very unhappy trustee who might take a run at you, but, you know, there's no concealment. There's no improper conduct there.
Okay. So we have all sorts of things. If, I want you to think, we're going to take a quick little segue here. If, and we're going to talk to Cheryl too here, but what was the question? I wanted to go. So if Dad tells the kid that he's going to give him $25,000 after the bankruptcy, theoretically, that money is part of the estate.
Yep.
And if they don't tell the estate, then they've sort of committed an illegal act. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay.